The reason you buy this car or don't buy this car is going to be because of the engine. Little slip on the uphill at 100. Welcome back, I'm Tedward, and today we're going to talk about whether it's a good idea to buy an E92 or E90 M3 for that matter as a daily driver. I've seen them go as low as the $16,000 range. That's kind of how BMW M cars work. They start out around that 60, 70, they tank and tank and tank until they get into the teens, and then people realize why they're special and they pop back up into the 20s. So right now is probably the time to buy if you're looking for like that serious bargain. I've got 91,000, almost 92,000 miles on mine, and I bought it at 35,000 miles. And I just figured it's a good time to talk about whether this is a bargain for you or it's just going to be a reliability, maintenance, money pit that is going to ruin your life. So it's yucky weather out here today, and if you notice, usually that's packed with school buses, so we can't drive too crazy because they are filled with children. We don't want to be responsible for that. One of the first things you should do when you get one of these cars is buy yourself a code reader. I use a Carly scanner because it allows me to read the BMW specific codes. You don't want to be the guy on the BMW forums who posts a picture of your check engine light and the little messages on the screen saying, "What's wrong with my car?" We don't know what's wrong with your car. Read the codes. And a generic code reader isn't going to give you the specific information. With Carly, you can see exactly what's going on from the BMW language and diagnose. But the reason you buy this car is for the engine. And the warning lights. So it's going to tell me that I need service because my brake pad sensors, I cut them. I used to change brake pads so frequently in this car because I would take it to the racetrack that I just never replaced the sensors. So now that the car has done 50,000 miles without replacing those sensors, it has this permanent brake light off even when I release the e-brake. So yeah, let's start off with the reasons you would buy this car. First of all, it's a race car engine, naturally aspirated V8 that revs to 8,200, over 8,200 RPM and makes about 420 horsepower. That's staggering. These are great numbers. The problem that comes with that, race car problems. You have super tight bearing clearances, and that is why everybody runs away from these engines. If you do own one, to preserve the life of your bearings, you want to make sure that you're letting the car warm up properly. We are not warmed up yet, so I am not going to put a lot of load on the engine, and I'm not going to give it too many revs. But the rod bearings are a very real issue, and you will spin a bearing if you don't do the maintenance and you don't treat the car correctly. A rod bearing job is going to run you about $2,500 at an indie shop. Do not go to BMW for this. For the love of God, do not spend that kind of money at a dealership. They will ruin you. But after you find a shop that you trust, you've also got to be able to choose a bearing that you're comfortable with. And a lot of folks go with the BE bearings because they're increased tolerance and they have a lot of data to support what they say. Others go with the ACLs, others go with VAC coated bearings. Pretty much at the end of the day, even if you were to go with an OEM bearing, you're replacing them. You're gonna get another 60 to 100,000 miles of comfortable driving out of this engine. So really, no matter what you go with, make sure you do something. But if you're getting into that 80, 90,000 mile range, it's time to swap them. And if you're buying the car used, make sure if they say that they have been replaced, you have proof. You've got to have proof of that job being done. Second up on the list of reliability issues, throttle actuators. The throttle actuators on this car, of which there are two, are located under the plenum. Obviously, they actuate the throttles. They open and close the independent throttle bodies of this engine. The failure point is that they use these plastic gears. There's a metal gear that turns a plastic gear, which in turn opens and closes the throttle. That plastic gear wears out and it fails, and eventually you light up like a Christmas tree, and it's gonna let you know that things are not going well for you. You'll be put in limp mode, and you will not have full power. A pair of throttle actuators is going to set you back about $1,200. However, there's a cheaper way to do it, because if the gears are the only thing wrong with your throttle actuators and you're a handy person, you're able to tinker and do things yourself, well, guess what? They make kits where you can replace those gears, and yeah, you can actually just replace the plastic if you're prepared to take apart your throttle actuators and you're not worried about burning out the electronics inside. But if you're like me, you buy everything from FCP Euro because they have fast shipping and they're just actually really nice to work with from a customer service perspective, and they have every part you could ever need. So when I did my throttle actuators, I bought them from FCP Euro because they have a lifetime warranty, which means that when, and I mean when, they go again, I'm just gonna swap them out and I'll get them for free. So those are the two big first questions you want to ask when you're buying one of these cars or deciding whether or not it's right for you. Because if you can't afford a rod bearing job, if you can't afford to do throttle actuators, which like I said, they will fail on you, then maybe this isn't the right time to jump into a $16,000, oh my God, I can't believe it's that cheap BMW M3. But that doesn't scare you away, and this still seems like a really good idea to you. It's a phenomenal platform. This chassis is just incredible. And although it's a bit heavy at 3,600 pounds, it does the job, even on a racetrack. Has a phenomenal traction control system, which has an Mdm mode. That Mdm mode allows a slight amount of slip before stepping in. Now, my car is tuned. My car was tuned by Brent Tuning in Upton, Massachusetts, and that means I can have a little more slip angle than stock. Nothing crazy, but what it does is it uses both power and those rear brake pads to try to find a sweet spot so you don't lose control, which is great, especially if you're somebody who's learning to drive a rear-wheel drive platform. And it will break loose. You'll notice it broke traction a little bit, but you also get these cool little shift lights when you're in Mdm mode. That's always fun. But does this make for a good daily driver? This is where the argument for the F80 platform really comes into play. And I know it's a lot more expensive, but the E92 M3, it's fairly stiff. It's not jaw-breaking, but it's stiff. It's not a luxurious, comfortable car because that's not what it's set out to do. It's set out to be a little more aggressive when it comes to handling. But the other thing is that because of this phenomenal engine that we all know and love, it has no low-end torque. It's all up top. There's no turbocharger to come in and add torque down low. You've got to be in the right gear. So when you're on the highway or you're just cruising around town and you decide, oh, I'm going to get into the throttle a little bit, you're really not going to go anywhere. And you don't want to lug that engine because lugging an engine puts excessive load on those bearings, which are a massive issue to begin with. Honestly, you're probably safe. But hey, just for the sake of discussion. And now that we're coming back to reality a little bit, we're excited about our 8,000 RPM V8. That's great. But if you're driving this every day, that 8,000 RPM V8 drinks quite a lot of fuel. And there's no fuel saver mode. On its best day, on the highway, 75, 80 miles per hour, you might eke out 22 miles per gallon. Might. Chances are, if you're doing 22 miles per gallon, you're going downhill. And when you turn around to go home, you're gonna get 19. It's a pig. It uses so much fuel. And you've only got a 16.1 gallon tank back there. So it chews through fuel fast and there's very little range. You end up at the gas station often. Obviously it's premium, but for the sake of the video and information, yeah, you're gonna put 93 in this thing. When I was working my project management job before I quit, I had to drive 80 miles per day in this car. That's why it has 91,737 miles on it right now. It's not because I just go on road trips and have fun in it. It's because I had to commute in this thing year round. And I'll tell you what, man, when you're driving 80 miles a day in an E92 M3 and stopping at that gas station at least twice a week, all those Honda Accords in the parking lot at work start to look real good. You start getting envious of people and their 34 mile per gallon economy cars. That being said, it is a pretty practical vehicle because, look, even as a coupe in the E92 chassis, I've got 4 seats, I've got a big boot, I can fit a bunch of stuff in that trunk, and it's a lovely cabin to exist in. I have cup holders, which actually, I don't think many people complain about these ones. I really like these cup holders. These are great. I have power for my dash cam, I've got reasonable space here, and there's phenomenal visibility. Now, one thing I really dislike about this car is the seating position. It is far too high, and that's something that BMW really figured out with the F80. They got it nice and low. This car, I definitely feel like I'm sitting on top of the car just a little more than I should be. It even has appropriate ground clearance. I don't worry about anything in this car. Now, you might think, well, I'm gonna get the competition package because it's better. is the competition package, unlike the F80, doesn't change enough. On the E90, E92 platform, all it really did was lower the car 10 millimeters and give you some wheels. I mean, sure, it was probably a reasonable box to tick when it was new because it wasn't a very expensive option, somewhere around $2,500 or $3,000. Okay, great. But at the end of the day, it doesn't really make the car any more special. And if you're buying this on the secondhand market, especially if you're looking for a budget one, like at $20,000 or less, you're probably just gonna put your own suspension on it anyway, or do a set of lowering springs. And then you'll have essentially a competition package. And if we're really being honest, a 19-inch wheel, which is what was offered with the competition package, is not competitive. That is ridiculous. That is way too big. That is way too little sidewall for a competitive car on a racetrack. What you're gonna do is you're probably gonna go out and buy some Apex wheels like I did. You're gonna get 18-inch wheels and you're gonna put 275s on every corner. I've got a set of NT01 Nittos, and my God, does this car grip. If you've got your heart set on the E90, E92 platform, the real decision you're gonna have to make is the transmission. Do you want DCT? Do you want a manual? It's way too easy to just jump in and say, I'll only drive a manual for life, everything is better in a manual. You'll notice I'm driving a DCT car, and I'm pretty picky. I'm not the guy who touts how much he loves automatic gearboxes. I thought I would always be the manual for life guy. I did, until I drove the DCT box, until I drove the manual option on this car. I don't really prefer the manual gearbox on the E92. It doesn't feel like BMW developed this car for that gearbox, and it's a little sloppy. There's just something about it that really doesn't do it for me. However, I will say that if you're trying to do this on a budget and you're trying to save money on maintenance, the manual is the better option, because these DCT boxes have filters. They have fluid change requirements. I mean, obviously you're gonna change the fluid in your manual gearbox occasionally too, but it's a little different with the amount of action that's going on in this box. Ew, I apologize for that one. What is that? Is that a 458? Speaking of great gearboxes, 488, hello. The reason I bought this gearbox is because it reminded me of those Ferrari gearboxes. It's actually that good. One of the most common questions I get on my Instagram about this car is, can I drive it in the winter? Well, of course you can. Yeah, it's rear-wheel drive. You don't need all-wheel drive to survive the snow. That's not necessary. But what you do need is a set of snow tires. Pretty simple. I put a set of Redestein Windtrack Pros on this thing on a set of 18-inch wheels in the winter, and it's fantastic. I've never gotten stuck in this car with those tires. But like, if your house is on top of the aggro crag from Global Guts, then yeah, maybe you need like a Chevy Tahoe or a Land Rover. But if you're like a normal person who has a driveway that isn't vertical, you're probably gonna be just fine with a set of snow tires in the winter with your E92 M3. The reason you buy this car or don't buy this car is gonna be because of the engine. Little slip on the uphill at 100. What a thing. I mean, look, either this engine is going to appeal to you in such a way that you have to have it, or it's going to be enough of a maintenance nightmare and expense that it's just not viable. And I understand either way. So it's a crummy day, but it's always a good day to grab a gear in your E92 M3 and just enjoy driving. That's what it's all about. So thank you so much for watching, liking, commenting, and subscribing. Don't forget to respect the drive, and I'll see you in the next one. One of my favorite features of the M3 isn't even a feature. It's just the fact that it has the old school hydraulic steering rack. It's so tactile. It is still a pure driving experience. Even though when this car came out, it was revered as being technologically superior and incredible for what it could do with its computing power, it's still overall a very analog driving experience.